welcome to our podcast today where we're going to dig deep into the issue that matters. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that affects millions of women and girls around the world, where many are still stigmatized, excluded, and discriminated against simply of their natural bodily function. We've got three amazing guests with us today, joining from Singapore, Bali, as well as Helsinki, where three of them are leading the change to eliminate period poverty in their respective countries and are advocating for change across Asia. But before we jump into juicy details, let's talk about what period poverty actually is. It is when women and girls cannot afford or access menstrual products or face social and cultural barriers that prevent them from managing their periods with dignity. They are prevented from getting an education, earning an income, and fully and equally participating in everyday life. It is a huge issue and it is impacting the life of so many people. That's why our three guests today are so important. Each of them are fighting to end period poverty and create a world where everyone can manage their period with dignity and respect. So, without further ado, let's get to know our guests a little better. Ladies, can you please introduce yourself and what you're doing?
Sure, I can start. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Tungga. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Perfect Fit. We are a menstrual health startup based in Bali, Indonesia. We are working to create a world where women and girls, as well as people with period, can reach their best potential. So no more limits to their best self through an improved menstrual health by providing them with taboo-breaking education as well as access to sustainable period products. Thank you.
My name is Faiza. I am from Suchi Cup. I'm one of the co-founders and the director of marketing. So Suchi Cup is a menstrual cup brand based in Malaysia, and our goal is to provide products and tools that help Malaysian women achieve the most confident period so that they're not held back by their periods and are able to live their best life all the time.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm from Go With The Flow, and we are based in Singapore. We are a woman team comprising of a few of my members. They are Eliza, Christina, Ranza, Kelly, and myself. So I'm representing Go With The Flow today. So we started Go With The Flow because one of our team members actually volunteered in a community project and realized that there's a lot of food distribution going around, but we noticed like there's a gap where soap and menstrual products are usually omitted from it, and we feel that it is one of the essentials that women needs it on a daily basis, and so that's why we started Go With The Flow. So Go With The Flow, basically we have different distribution boxes around our Singapore island, and we use the community-based kind of donation where people will donate it into donation boxes, and then we will bring it back to our distribution center, and then we will repack it and actually deliver it to our beneficiaries. Over the years, we have also expanded into adult diapers, and we hope to expand further into baby diapers in the near future.
Super inspiring from all of you. Well, let's now jump into the topic that we want to focus on today. Let's talk about the period poverty in Asia, especially. We can start by each of you sharing a short personal story or experience that actually motivate each of you to start working on the space of menstrual health, especially addressing period poverty in Asia.
Maybe I can go first. So every month, one of our beneficiaries who wish to be remained unnamed, she does face a struggle because she has to choose between a meal or a pack of sanitary product. So when money is tight, she ends up having to create mixed-swift pads by sticking double-sided tape onto diapers that her child has outgrown. So period poverty do exist in Singapore. And this is definitely defined by the lack of access to menstrual product as well as menstrual education. Yeah, it is something that we in Go With The Flow really do hope to, to help those people who are in need to actually overcome this struggle.
What about in Bali as well as in Malaysia?
So I can start by sharing my personal story. So I grew up in West Java, specifically in Bogor. And when I had my first period when I was 11, I thought that I was sick. This is because menstruation is very taboo in my family. So I grew up in a Muslim family background. I remember that time I was screaming, and then my mom came to the toilet and telling me what's happened. And then I show what happened, and she told me that it's menstruation, and now I'm an adult. So for an 11-year-old teenage girl, you were very shocked. And in a Muslim family culture in my society, they said when you're an adult means you are now carrying your own sin. So you have to watch your attitude. I cannot cut my nail. I cannot wash my hair. I need to wash the disposable pads before throwing it away. Otherwise, ghosts will follow me. So I always associate period with something scary and limitation. But because it's so taboo, so I've never like really think about it until fast forward 2018. I worked for a non-profit organization that do a lot of work in remote areas of Indonesia. And I met one girl, same age like me, 11 years old, who didn't know anything about periods. So she thought that period blood come from her bottom. It leads me to dig deeper, and then there's a study from Burnett Institute who said 1 out of 4 girls in Indonesia never talk about period before having it first time. So just imagine like it's very hard for them to deal with it. And when you talk about period poverty, it's also inability to have menstruation with dignity, not only products, but also facilities and adequate information about what's happening with your body. So after that, I sort of like turned out into a feminist and a menstrual health advocate. So, and been working towards like advocating to reduce period poverty in Indonesia and beyond.
So speaking for Suchi Cup, we're a small business that uh, our foray into period poverty advocacy was not by design, it was by coincidence, actually. So we had a company that focused on zero waste solutions before the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, we had to pivot because our business model was no longer viable, right? So we picked a product that was zero waste, and we figured because everyone on our team used menstrual cups, the story of how we used the menstrual cup was that a younger team member of ours, who was still in university, started using it. And then for us, the older, moms on the team finally decided that, oh, if a younger woman can use it, so can we. And then we discovered how absolutely liberating using a menstrual cup is. We decided that this is a product that first of all, there is a big niche in Malaysia. There are not many period products such as menstrual cups in Malaysia. So we figured this is a good product to, take on online during the the pandemic times. So as we started marketing our product, we discovered how challenging it was just marketing a tool that is associated with menstrual health, especially because the use of a menstrual cup requires you to insert it into the vagina. So anything that has to do with the female anatomy is extremely still steeped in stigma, especially in many pockets of conservative communities in Malaysia. So we found that extremely challenging. And during the pandemic, the issue of period poverty started getting a lot of spotlight because especially the urban poor women in Malaysia were having a lot of problems accessing products because the prices were getting higher and they weren't able to go outside to buy things themselves because they were not able to buy anything online because many of them don't have, bank accounts, etc. It came to a point where many of them had to use rags. Some even used, people who had access to coconut husks in rural areas, they used coconut husks. The stories are so shocking. So for us at Suchikap at that time, we were not aware even that such a problem existed. But because of the highlight by the media, we felt a calling to kind of support the issue of period poverty from the standpoint of a small business. So that is how Suchi Cup came to be, to have skin in the game.
What I want to say is that it's so shocking at the same time. That's the reality where we thought that it's something that handled privately, so we don't talk about it, but it's yet the situation of period poverty is actually experienced by many women and girls. Based on your experience, all of you, is there any difference and challenges when it comes to period for poverty in the urban compared to in the rural area? Or how's the period poverty in urban may be different from the period poverty in the rural setting?
I forgot to mention that we might think like menstruation is just, something that we taken for granted. Oh, it's every month, etc. But globally, in the World Bank studied it in 2020, it said 500 million women and girls does not have enough facility for menstrual hygiene management, meaning like managing their menstruating with dignity. And in Indonesia alone, a study by Johns Hopkins University and Gajah Mada University said that 22% of women surveyed in Indonesia doesn't have access to manage their menstruation with dignity, meaning doesn't have access to product, maybe facilities, and also education. So if we take with the populations of reproductive women in Indonesia, it's almost equal to 15 million people with period. And the unique thing about Indonesia is because we are a large country, so we are like the fourth most populous country in the world, and the huge disparity between urban and rural is I could say it's very large. So just to give like one study, when we had our initiative in Eastern Nusa Tenggara province, so the second poorest province in Indonesia, I was shocked that there was no running water, there was no toilet. Women or menstruators needs to walk like 3 to 5 kilometers to the nearest like kiosk, so they could be able to buy period products. There are single-use pads in the kiosk or warung we call it, but maybe only one brand or two brands. So there are not many options that they can choose. And lack of options also means they have to, like, they are forced to choose that it can like leads to maybe irritation, rashes, or UTIs for some women who has very, very allergic to that. So they started to use other things like racks or other materials to reduce the health effect. Whereas in Jakarta, if you just go outside your door, you can find like supermarket like everywhere, or you can also just having it by online Gojek or online marketplace. So you can find product easily. But maybe the challenges is more like the taboos and the stigmas to, let's say, maybe buy menstrual cup or other like products that's not really culturally appropriate to one menstruator background. So for this, the challenge making like no size fits all, meaning like I cannot give the same products and education of what I have in Jakarta to like women and girls in NTT or in Papua, because they have so much different challenges that they could have. Like, for example, a woman in NTT, they might don't have access to internet, or they don't have a lot of money to buy. So that's why we cannot let's say, sell our premium period underwear to them. So we make different products that's like tailored to their needs for managing their period. Whereas women, let's say in urban Jakarta, who has more purchasing power and access, they can also like buy premium products or higher qualities for helping them. So I think for the challenge itself, it's not easy, but also I believe for every challenge it brings you opportunity to be creative. So that's why when building the perfect fit, we have like premium product, we have handmade product, we have different education for like Muslim communities, Christian communities, Hindu communities, schools, teenager, young adults, or like menopause women. So I think, it forced us to be creative.
Yes, in Singapore, it's just urban. We are a rather cosmopolitan city, I must say. But there's a study actually in Singapore done by our government. It's called SingStat. It actually indicated that the bottom 20% of household actually spend more than what they are earning. So this has actually kind of make us worried because there are some families who actually has more menstruators compared to, or even some individuals who have a menstrual disorder that cause them to bleed more than the average person. And this will in turn actually they will have some difficulty finding ways to cope with the cost of menstrual products. So I would say that period poverty in Singapore still exists. It's actually quite a big problem that has been overlooked by a lot of organizations, and that's the reason why we started Go with the Flow, and we hope to actually bridge this gap between this city to actually reach out to people who actually are in need of this product. We do not hope to be hearing from our beneficiaries because we have been hearing a lot that before we step in to help them, they are actually using rugs or toilet paper to actually come up with mixed with pads, which we also realize that using such unsanitary mixed with pads can actually expose the users to possible infections and will aggravate their financial plight as they have to spend more on medical costs to treat the infection. So we definitely hope that we can actually step in this area to actually help them in our small little way. So I guess Faiza and Tenaga, I understand that you guys are from Indonesia and Malaysia. I guess you understand the kampung spirit. So kampung is actually like a small village kind of thing, and Singapore was once a kampung, and that's why we hope to bring back the kampung spirit where we actually have people from the community who are doing better to actually help donate into our donation boxes, and then we will try to actually relocate the resources to our needy families or people who needs it, and to actually help to help them go through this difficult. I don't know. I would say it's a natural body process for everyone, but to them, they find it as a difficult process because they find that it is difficult to actually decide between a meal for a kid or even to actually use the money to actually buy sanitary products. So it's definitely something that we hope that we can help them to cast that worry out and actually to enjoy period more.
Thank you, Yvonne. Faiza.
For us, from Suchi Cup's point of view, there is a rather large disparity between the rural and the urban ways of advocating for period poverty eradicament. Because for us in Malaysia, the way that we see it is that in terms of the population, so we have something that we call the B40 or the bottom 40 in terms of economic power. 30% of them, about 30 to 35% of them are rural, but 65 to 70% of them are actually urban. So the in terms of poverty, it's much larger in urban areas. So one of the things that makes it more difficult in urban areas when it comes to period poverty is the overcrowding. In many places, it's not just access to period products, because of course that is something that I feel like everywhere. If you do not have enough money, therefore you do not have enough access to clean, hygienic, disposable and easy to manage waste period products, right? But especially in urban areas, the overcrowding means that you no longer have privacy. You don't have enough space to use the toilet. For example, you share toilets with maybe with 20 or 30 people in a communal house. And then you don't have anywhere to wash and clean and make sure that your underwear is dry, for example. So all these things contribute much more to, first of all, is a health problem. And secondly, is, of course, the shame, the stigma, the taboo, the mental health aspect of menstruating. At Suchi Cup, one of the stories that really resonated with us when we really took notice about period poverty in Malaysia was when there were surveys done by NGOs and grassroots leaders. They went to urban flats and where the urban poor are concentrated. They go and they, talk and interview the people, the women there, how some women choose to become pregnant instead of menstruating every month. Because when you are poor, you do not have access to food. Sometimes buying a pad is such a big deal that you'd rather just, think of your short-term solutions rather than the long-term ramifications of your decisions. So for us, that was really one of the biggest turning points when it came to our stand to really advocate for period poverty in a way that a small business can, because we are very aware that a menstrual product such as ours, which is a menstrual cup, is the barrier to use is very high even for highly educated and people who have spending money. The barrier to use is very high because a lot of it is getting used and comfortable with your own body. But for us, if we are able to help supplement the other aspects of period poverty indicators, like giving science-based and sort of information and communication and engagement with the grassroots, with young people, to be at the level where they are, to explain to them about how myths are myths and facts are facts. For us as a small business at Suchi Cup, that's a role that we know we can take a very central part in. So yeah, that's where Suchi Cup sees it.
That's quite shocking, right? How women choose to avoid the natural body process, given because of the living condition that they are experiencing. Now, moving on to something that is, we've talked about the problem, and obviously we need longer period. I mean, we need longer time to talk about and really unload this such a complex issue. But maybe just in a short, how is the economic factor is actually perpetuate the period poverty in Asia, or is it more um, of the social and cultural norms that actually perpetuate the period poverty? How is it different across three different countries? Is it more in the economy or a combination of both, or is there more on the period taboo, something more cultural, something more cultural, or something more economic?
I think that the determinants of period poverty, there would be a very good research, I would say. There hasn't been like a longitudinal, like long-term study about it. There are a few like in Africa and South Asia, not yet in Southeast Asia, I believe. I would say because menstruation is not only about one thing. It's not only about like health, but it's also about wash, like access to water and sanitation. It's also about education and productivity. So when women doesn't have access to period products, facilities, and education, they might miss school or work so that they cannot be productive in our society. And then also economy. So single-use pads in Indonesia, it can be as cheap as like 5,000 rupiah. Maybe it's even less than $1 of Singapore. And the cost of one pack of cigarette tobacco is 30,000. So it's like 6 times less expensive than one pack of cigarette. So I said for the bottom of pyramids, it can be quite hard for accessing the single-use pads. But the biggest thing is not only about the price, but also the shame and stigma about it, that it's not seen as a primary needs. So menstruation is not seen as like the basic needs of humans. For example, like in here in the country, like rice, food, and like shelter, access to that as a basic needs, but not like period products. So because of you're not having like awareness about it, it means that, oh, that's like the expense that we can just like, set aside. It's like we need to have rice first. We need to have, clothes and even tobacco first rather than having like period products. So for me, that I was shocking, like when we were interviewing many households, is like, because, even though women hold the power for, household consumptions, but male are still the breadwinner in the family. So they need to like buy tobacco or like other things that they like want to prioritize. And as menstruation is not something that they aware of, to prioritize. So they like, okay, like, they set aside, that, needs, as a primary care. So I really like second what, Faiza said, that women choose to like getting pregnant rather than, having to menstruate because they need to buy products. Or even like in Africa's, in a few countries there, women needs to have transactional sex because they don't have, money, or they, think that, it's needed to buy, menstrual product because they don't, see it as a primary, needs that every household needs to have like that, in the monthly expense.
What about Yvonne?
So I think it's really a mix of both. One is regarding the cost of it, and another one is also the stigma that it goes towards the menstruation process. So in Go with the Flow, we also has a strong advocacy pillar. So we definitely through this our organization, we hope to increase awareness about elevating period poverty. We not only work with schools to actually have mini Go with the Flow donation drives. So it allows conversation to actually begin when they are young, and so that there will not be like when what I went through when I was a kid, when I had my first period, I was like what Tanaga was saying, you was scared. So we are actually bringing this into the education system with the starting with schools. For Go with the Flow, I think we are also trying to advocate in an area where using reusable it might be a good starting point, especially for our needy families in Singapore, because that will mean that there will be a reduction in price of using one-off sanitary product. So we do realize that the lower income families are more not open to using reusable products because they are not introduced to it. So we actually do come up with leaflets and information kit where we actually put it in our monthly distribution bags to them, and then we can ask them if they are hoping to give it a try or if they want to opt out of it, and we will actually provide it to them if they are willing to try. So we have started off with menstrual cups and also those reusable menstrual pads. To date, we have seen like there are a few families and especially those younger lower income families are switching towards this. So it's actually something that we hope that we can introduce more to them and then share with them more to actually change the perception of using reusables. So I would say that economy and societal awareness is really important, and in Go with the Flow we are spreading the message that this natural biological process should not be considered as something that's shameful, and we hope to remove the stigma attached to periods.
Thank you, Yvonne. Faiza.
For us as well, I think all four of us actually here agree that both economic and social factors really contribute to period poverty, because there is no such thing as a social issue that happens in a silo, right? So it's very multidimensional. Poverty is multidimensional. It's never just about economic parity power. For us, the way we see it is that when it comes to economy, there is not much as a small business such as ours can do in terms of spending money or increasing the income of low income families, or just kind of increasing income of a woman everywhere in Malaysia. But what we can do is definitely from a social standpoint. For us, I think the unique thing about Suchi Cup, I feel, is that we are putting out a product that can be, I guess, to a certain extent, quite highly controversial, actually, especially for a community like mine. I myself Muslim. I come from a pretty conservative background. And, even talking, saying the word vagina is not something common. You wouldn't hear it very often, I guess, in my community. In order to break that barrier, in order to break that stigma and that taboo, right, we have to start myth busting. We have to make people understand that what they learn from maybe their mothers or their grandmothers, who probably at some time or some point lacked education and awareness as well, there has to be a point where that cycle must be broken. And we are the generation that must do that so that our children don't have to go through the same things that we have to go through. Being scared about getting their period, thinking you have cancer when you get your period the first time, thinking you're dying. So for Suchi Cup, one of the social aspects that we take very seriously is becoming a bridge between health experts, between advocates, between researchers, and the general public. So even though we are, to a certain extent, we're a small business, we're selling a product, but we do take our social responsibility very seriously. We make a lot of content in bite size that are easy to digest and are, situated within the lives and social context and cues of our general public. We talk to a lot of OBGYNs. We talk to a lot of people who have experienced, cervical cancer, survivors. We have even gone on, it's not charity, but we have gone and visited refugee camps. We visited very low income areas together with NGOs and the grassroots leaders to kind of just see, first of all, or for our part, to observe what the level of education in terms of just bodily function, not even menstrual cup use, but just like, do you know where babies come from? Do you know where the period comes from? Do you know that when you have sex, for example, you have a baby? These types of things that are probably completely common for people like us in the middle class to know and understand from very young age. For people who don't have access to education, basic education, things like this are not common knowledge. So for Suchi Cup, in that way, we take a serious role from the social responsibility aspect.
Going to the next question. This question coming from our ally, basically the non-menstruator, that care about this issue, and they're always wondering, what can we do? What role can non-menstruator, or let's say man, what can they do in order to end or help ending the period poverty in Asia?
I think the first thing that non-menstruators can do is to take it seriously, to not make it sound like this is, a woman's business. Because I think when the tone, especially when it comes in a very serious sort of environment at a governmental level, at a federal or state level, the tone that men use when speaking about women's issues, not just menstruation, but also, say, for example, female income disparity, for example, or child care, the type of work, the invisible labor that women have to go through every day in order to keep their families together. It has to be talked about seriously and not just that, like household issues. They are societal issues, they are national issues, they are human issues. So I think that's the first step.
I do agree with Faiza. I think that the first step is actually to create a safe space for conversations around menstruation in our daily lives to support menstruators around us. Faiza just now actually mentions that, saying the word vagina is actually something that it's not a norm in Malaysia. So it's something that actually in Singapore we do see it as well, especially in the Chinese community, in the Malay community. I don't think it's a round table topic like, in a dining table, you actually talk about it. It's actually surprising that my team members actually come together and actually we actually do talk about it, and we do share about, how do we even use the menstrual cups, and how do we prevent it from leaking and stuff like that. It's actually a easygoing conversation once you actually has someone who to keep the ball started. I guess it's just not supposed to be something that girls are or ladies are supposed to just talk about. Maybe it should be just a normal conversation. I mean, it's not supposed to be a focused topic, but even if like in office, if you see someone suddenly leak, she actually like, hey, there's a leak there. Do you need help? Or what can I do to help you? Or go and find some products for her and stuff like that. We are actually quite excited to work with companies in Singapore who actually has donation drive in office, and those donation drive in office actually turn out really well, because it's not just the ladies. We understand from the event from the office that it's not just the ladies who are donating. It's actually the guys. Either they might be shy to actually go buy the products. They are actually providing cash instead, and we are hoping that one day it might change the concept as well, where people are actually more willing to step up and just go and buy the products. But I guess it's just baby step at this moment. We also have like donation drives in universities, and we do see some guys with their peers actually coming to the donation boxes, or coming to our donation drive to actually help out in their way, like buying our products and then just dropping it into the donation box. So we actually have donation drive where there's available sanitary products around, and we sell it at cost price, and they just actually just hold it, and just drop it into the donation box. Like this, I guess that's the baby step that we are trying to do in Go with the Flow to actually destigma this whole issue in Singapore.
For us to support efforts and to contribute eliminating period poverty, especially in Asia Pacific. So the Menstrual Hygiene Day theme this year is hashtag We Are Committed. So we are committed to provide educations about menstrual health, provide products, provide period-friendly infrastructure, tackling taboos and stigma. And I would say there are three steps that listeners can help to support eliminating period poverty. The first one is the easiest and no cost at all. So you should follow and support local organization that have been doing the issue. Like, for example, us in Indonesia, Perfect Fit, Suci Cup in Malaysia, Go with the Flow in Singapore. And I believe there are amazing organizations that's just outside your door if you try to figure it out. So follow and support them and share it to your network. The second, needs a little bit more capital. If you are menstruating and wants to switch to better products, you buy from woman-led and impact-driven business. You can buy period underwear from Perfect Fit or menstrual cup from Suci Cup, and other woman-led business that are doing ways to reduce period poverty. Because I believe Faiza also share the profit to help the need, and as well as Perfect Fit, we have the buy one give one model, whereas like every purchase of your you made, we will donate one reusable pad to menstruator in need in Indonesia. And the third, need more efforts. Maybe you can come to events or also read and listen to podcasts related to the issue, organize group sharings about it. There are a lot of great books and podcasts that's talking about period poverty. Yeah, up to you. Which one you want to choose?
Well, that's a perfect summary of our conversation today, Matunga. Thank you so much. Any last message for all the listeners that wants to be shared by Faiza and Yvonne before we wrap up our discussion today? Anything that you think, what can a listener can do to support your efforts or contribute to raise the awareness or specifically for your organization?
So for me, I feel that the best way to help with period poverty, if you are unable to do anything like a tangible economic difference in the way people menstruate, is to say it as it is. If you hear somebody say something incorrect, unscientific about periods, tell them it is wrong and correct them. This is, for me and for my team, this has always been the way that we move, and direct them to a source that is correct and scientific. So this is how we break the cycle.
I think for in Go with the Flow, we believe that no job is too small and no effort is too little. So we definitely hope that people can come in whatever way from all walks of life to actually contribute in their little way, even if it's like cash donations or even spending some time with us volunteering, like delivering the donation packs to our beneficiaries in Singapore. And also, there are other ways to actually help the period poverty to in Singapore is basically, just be understanding about menstruators around, and also do not think that buying a period product is actually cheap, because in the long run it actually adds up to actually a significant cost that a low income household might actually not be able to they have to decide between a meal, transportation, or choosing appropriate products to actually go through this cycle. So I think, like what Tanga says, to support startup like Pfizer, and Tanga has greatly, went through to actually start up all these shops and stuff like that to actually help them, and also to actually put in come join our volunteering effort, and we can definitely do more and reach out to more people who needs it.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We've been discussing an important topic that still affects so many women and girls around the world. Their stories and insight have been truly inspiring, and we hope that this has opened up a conversation for all of us to think about ways we can contribute to end the period poverty. Like Yvonne said, there's never too small effort from each of us. So just remember that this is a problem that affects really half of the population, and we need to work together to make the difference. It's time to break the silence and remove the stigma surrounding menstruation. So we hope this episode has been insightful and has encouraged you to take action, whether it's donating to the organization, like Go with the Flow, work together to combat the period poverty through open conversation with your friends, with your family members, with everyone, from your school to your office, or anyone just in your daily routine, like what Baisam may say, as well as supporting women-led businesses that actually trying to build a sustainable solution for menstrual management, like Suchi Cup and Perfect Fit. Let's continue to work together to make sure that everyone has the dignity they deserve to manage their period.